Greetings, science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts. Do you read books? Do you watch films? Do you hate deodorant? Then welcome to our podcast. With Ryan Sean O'Reilly, David Wilkinson, and Richard Mell. You're listening to No Deodorant in Outer Space. Now, let's get started.
It was all very well going about pure logic and how the universe was ruled by logic and the harmony of numbers, but the plain fact was that the disk was manifestly traversing space on the back of a giant turtle, and the gods had a habit of going around to atheists' houses and smashing their windows. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another exciting edition of No Deodorant in Outer Space. My name is Ryan Sean O'Reilly, and I'll be hosting you on this wonderful voyage. Joining me, as usual, is Richard Mell.
I'm doing good.
And, included in this podcast, as per usual, David P. Wilkinson.
What's up, Grunlings?
How are you guys, everyone, doing this evening?
Good. I'm putting you on Periscope right now.
Wilk has discovered Periscope, so he's literally periscoping every aspect of his life as much as he can. It's very exciting. He just periscoped our last preview episode, and I watched it and tried to heckle him from the comment section. And now we're going to try to do a regular episode while we're periscoping, and I expect Wilk to be thoroughly distracted the whole time and probably not pay attention, but it won't be that much different than our normal episodes.
It could actually improve it.
Okay.
Yeah, so this is like the universe might collapse on itself. I'm filming you talking about the podcast on film. This is amazing. Go on.
So, and it's also delayed. It's kind of tripping me out because I can watch it on my phone here.
You're watching me watch you.
Yeah, private eyes. Right. Any other updates from anyone before we get into things?
Yeah,
Rick.
Rick's got an update.
Rick, anything new with you?
Oh yeah. In a couple of weeks, we've got the Milwaukee River Challenge. So anyone out there who's into rowing, get up there. You'll see some great fast boats from Purdue, Wisconsin, Marquette, and the Marquette alumni, class of '95 and earlier.
When will you be doing this?
In 2 weeks, Saturday afternoon.
Good. This episode will already be out by then. So...
It won't be, will it?
No, I mean, I'm sorry. It will be coming out after that's done.
Whatever.
So...
then go to the Charles on October 17th.
Or go to the web and watch how Rick did.
No, you don't have to do that.
So, this episode, we are going to be covering The Color of Magic by Sir Terry Pratchett. And also a film version done by the BBC in 2 parts, which was titled Terry Pratchett's The Color of Magic, which was directed by Vadim and starred Sean Astin. And I think Tim Curry was in there. Jeremy Irons had a cameo. And who played Rincewind? That was David Jason.
Don't forget
Death, which was Christopher Lee, who is also in Lord of the Rings as Saruman. And Sean Astin was in Lord of the Rings as Samwise Gamgee.
Christopher Lee is probably one of the most interesting people on the planet, but that's not...
He's been in lots of
We should find some more things with him for our next season.
I think he's done lots of fantasy and related sci-fi stuff. He also has his own metal album, I think.
About Charlemagne. It's like a metal rock opera about Charlemagne, and he was he was basically a James Bond type person in the British Secret Service, and then he played a Bond villain. He's an amazing guy.
And now he's an actor. Hey, go figure.
Now he's dead.
Deceased. And he played Death.
Oh, now he's dead. Sorry.
In this movie. And another thing is, I think he was the only actor in The Lord of the Rings who actually had met Tolkien in real life and knew Tolkien.
Well, and Peter Jackson has a great story about Christopher Lee, where he's given him direction. He says, try and imagine somebody being stabbed and how they would sound. And he says to Peter Jackson, I don't have to imagine that. So...
Oh...
He killed. Yeah, he was basically.
He was in the wars.
He was basically an inglorious bastard. I mean, he's got a fascinating military history. True hero kind of guy. All right, boom.
All right. Well, if that's it, then let's go around and just give our opening comments to set up the show this evening. And Wilk, let's go to you. Start us off with something snappy.
Terry Terry Pratchett wrote an amazingly well-crafted book that is great if you're a connoisseur of fantasy literature from the 70s and 80s.
All right. Rick,
Yeah.
let's get a little one-sentence summary on your thoughts.
The color of magic accentuates everything classic fantasy never could get to because it was so serious.
Okay. And I'll say, this was a right good romp on the disc, full of madcap adventure and plenty of wonderment, plus a dash of introspection for good measure.
Just a dash.
All right. This was written by Terry Pratchett, who we covered last season when we did Going Postal, and you can listen to that episode from our archives. And I'll just add that we all loved that book, and I think that was that the only book that we gave 5 stars across the board from everyone?
I loved it. I think Rick loved it.
Yeah,
I'm not sure there was another book that we got that had that same claim. And one of our more popular episodes.
And
too.
if I can ask, was that the first Terry Pratchett book that we had all read? It was my first Terry Pratchett.
I had read The Color of Magic previously.
That was my first Terry Pratchett book.
Yeah.
Going Postal was. I loved it.
Yeah. So we kind of covered Terry Pratchett previously in more of a broad sense of his life. So what we decided to do this episode is to just kind of focus a little bit more nuance in the early part of his life. Now, Terry Pratchett passed away earlier this year, and I think Rick did a tribute to him on one of the preview episodes previously, so we know that happened. But Rick, you were going to give us a little bit about his bio, but kind of just more focusing on the nuances of his just very early career and how he got his start into things.
Okay, so we all know he took the library a lot more seriously than he took school. He read a lot. He read everything he could find.
Actually, I didn't know that. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? He took the library more seriously.
Well, if you listen to the last episode, which you were a part of,
I'm not going to give you a reference. I mean, that's just kind of like what I know from reading articles about him.
He was we talked about in the last episode, he was a big proponent of the library, and he just devoured books at the library, and I think at local bookstores, almost like they were drugs. And so I think credited a lot of his education to doing that. I listened to an interview where he said when he was growing up, he used to scrawl, pictures of trolls and stuff into his textbooks. And
so
stuff.
where's your verbal footnote for all of this, Ryan? Seriously.
What?
What's up?
Acknowledgements, please.
Hmm?
Acknowledgements, please.
Oh yeah, you discussed that in the last episode.
So where did you get that information?
What?
Ryan.
From you.
I'm just joking.
Oh, it's pretty funny.
No, it's kind of like a mirror of you, Wilt. But you like mirrors, right? Infinity mirrors. Watching someone watch you, watching somebody else.
Did he not
watching
finish?
You.
Did he not finish school though? That's what I was asking.
We talked about that.
No, he went through school. He went through school a lot.
I did read something tonight.
He just didn't take it very seriously. He got most of his education in libraries. That's what he admits.
But I did.
So what's the big deal about that?
Well, I did read something tonight that said he left school early. I don't know what level to go do some journalistic work. So
Did he go to university? I'm just kidding. I mean, he's such a prolific writer. I'm just curious what his level of education was. I mean, I'm really interested in what makes a man like this.
I'm not interested in his journalistic work yet because when he was 12 years old, he was able to publish a short story called The Hades Business in Fantasy Sci-Fi magazine, or Fantasy Science, I believe it was called.
Wow.
Science Fantasy.
Science Fantasy.
Yeah,
it was originally published in the magazine Technical Signet, and 2 years later commercially in Science Fantasy.
That's a big one. It's a big one.
Okay, that is huge for a 12-year-old. Okay, so right off the bat,
it's jack shit for a 14-year-old.
13.
12, it's pretty impressive.
Okay. Well, I think that's just something to hang on your hat. But I guess the story itself created a controversy in his school. The principal made the remark that he didn't appreciate the moral tone of the book, which is extremely interesting to me because he does carry on this very satirical moral tone in all of his stories. So he had that originated from the very start. Also, I've read just a small snippet from the book.
And wasn't that book supposed to be about demons in hell were trying to, real estate agents from hell were trying to sell real estate in hell or something? Something like that. I read something like that.
Hell is underpopulated, and Hades is looking for new occupants, and he goes to
he sends
heaven. He goes to Earth, I believe, Earth is full of great businessmen. He was able to get a guy named Crucible, and Crucible gets down there, and it's just a small scene that I read. It was Hades getting his dog not to sick Crucible in the leg, because the last guy he kind of bit a chunk off of his leg, and that was Orpheus, and that's like a Greek.
Yeah,
that's
right.
the Greek god of poetry, music.
It's crazy, yeah.
And that kind of shows how that shows how Terry is into mythology, and that's just something that he really kind of understood as a 13-year-old. That's great.
What's your favorite myth? What do you like? I like the Minotaur.
You're a fan of the
Minotaur?
Minotaur?
The Minotaur is cool. Yeah,
that's a good one.
I can't think of any right now off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of it. I studied Greek mythology in college. I remember enjoying it thoroughly.
Yeah, I read through all the stories. It's just, I guess I like the character Pan, and how he is kind of portrayed as sort of like this this prepubescent boy or pubescent boy, or whoever you want to call it, that is continuously played by women, and how that sort of image of Pan is totally different than the Greek myth, which is very interesting.
Go on.
Well, anyway, let's see. Terry, so he was able to publish, and, that's pretty much how far I read into the thing. I didn't really continue on beyond that. Like, I know that he was hired by a journalist. I think I don't know how he was working with a journalist, or how it was conceived that he can start he talked to a publicist while he was a journalist for one of the papers over there.
Double dipping.
And there you go. That's kind of like how he got into it. And the publisher wasn't that big of a deal, but they really enjoyed his work. And I think he just kind of was inspired by the momentum. And I think he just always knew that that's what he wanted to do. He knew he was good at it.
Did he have a formal education
People probably
in writing, do you think? Or did he go
formal?
Beyond,
I'm sure he's got some kind of document somewhere with a diploma, but it's just, that's not really publicized very much. I mean, did anyone else find out about where he graduated from? He's got honorary doctorates.
Having earned 5 0 levels.
That's Harry Potter owl levels, right?
After his first, I don't know the British system. It said in this.
It's based on owls, I think.
Having earned 5 O levels and started A level courses in art, history, and English, he decided after the first year to try journalism. And when a job opportunity came, he talked things over with his parents, and he left school in 1965.
So big time in Britain, 65. The war was raging. The war for their soul.
The war against the British.
But then he also took a 2-year
mob rockers,
course in journalism and passed an A level in English. He came the top. He scored the top in his country in journalism.
Nice. Did you ever practice as a journalist, or?
Well, yeah. I think.
Do you have anything?
We covered that last time that he was a journalist. We covered that some in the previous episode about him, and he also kind of worked in PR. And we worked for nuclear companies, right?
Yeah, no.
Yes.
I'm just curious how he transitioned from. I mean, he's been writing his whole life.
Yeah,
so he became a full-time writer when he didn't have to do any side work, and how he.
Well, at some point he wrote. He wrote The Carpet People, which I think was more of his first book. All right. He said I watched an interview where he said he got the idea because I think one of his friends was walking around pacing, kind of incessantly on the carpet, and he's like, "Be careful, you'll upset the carpet people." And then he started thinking in his mind, what about a world where there's people living on the carpet? So he wrote this whole world about these people living on the carpet, and then that was one of his first publications. He had some more publications after that before he wrote his first Discworld book, which is this book that we're covering, The Color of Magic. And he was doing that, I think, while he was a journalist, and maybe might have had a couple different journalistic jobs. But then I was just trying to find which, was it by the third book? Was it the third one?
Man,
Ryan,
it's a shame.
You're like being, come on, dude.
I think it was the third book, in 87.
It's fucking painful.
He was writing. Well, you were supposed to research this. I think
I did research. I did my little thing. It was like 5 minutes long or 3 minutes long.
I think like a lot of writers, he had some success publishing, and it took for him to have a number of books out. And then once he had
the iterative process of submitting and review and getting a contact, and everyone goes through it, and everyone knows the fucking story.
Well, no, yeah, we know the story, but here's my thought. I mean, you get published at 13. What do you think that does for his confidence? Do you think that inspired him to write more? Because he didn't have that rejection, that failure. I mean, he had a lot of success from a young age. Do you think he would have been less prolific if he hadn't submitted that article at 13? I mean, what do you think really... I mean, this guy is probably... Not probably. He was the most prolific author in Britain for a period of time. And to me, that's the interesting part. That's the why about Terry Pratchett. We know what the what is. We know what he did, but I'm just curious why. I mean, how Discworld is a pretty massive undertaking. It's a lot of writing. And this guy, he never really...
Yeah, but
Yeah,
Discworld
really
is a massive
struggled.
undertaking, but it's a world he created a step at a time. Think about that too. Discworld is not.
I think Wilt's
planned.
point though is that he kind of set out and he made this fucking mountain. It was a monument for something. What was it for? What inspired him? Where did he get the idea to get that structure there?
I mean, we're all... I'm very American. You guys probably are too. We have Stephen King. Stephen King I look at as this amazing, prolific author that's just doesn't stop writing. But then Terry Pratchett's put out way more than Stephen King in a shorter period of time. And to me, that's pretty amazing. And I just wonder, like, how many people out there are there like that? What makes them tick? What makes them go? What makes people gobble up their words? How do they stay fresh and relevant? I mean, we read one of his later books, read one of his earlier books. The quality of the book that we read was very comparable to the later book. And, you know, at the same time, it's different. So, to me, I mean, that to me is the really interesting part about Terry Pratchett is, like, what are the things that made up his psyche that made him able to do these great things? Was it innate? Was it learned? That sort of thing.
Well, I believe it was learned because, I mean, the quality of his writing is extremely remarkable. He can go into a tangent and just open it up and have it blossom and then pull out of that all of a sudden and then just get back with sort of like, you know, the plot. Okay. But he'll take you on tangent after tangent and then you'll lose time and then he'll change time and, you know, it's multidimensional. It's just, and dimensions are, you know, a theme in his books too. It's like he's got this affinity for something that is not occurring in real time, and it's as real as the current situation. It's just, plus he'll just go into ultimate detail with anything that just sort of he thinks is fancy enough.
You know, he's. I heard him in or I read art interviews. He was a very prolific reader. I think that's how it started. He went to the library and he went to bookstores and he was just gobbling up books like they were drugs. And he just read and read and read, and eventually, you know, he started trying his own thing. That's a lot of writers start. He just started trying it out, and, you know, being well read is part of what formed him, I think, and having that
do you
desire.
Think, so, like, in my research, I wasn't able to find anything on his father or his mother. I don't think I really looked, but I mean, that probably has a lot to do with.
He said that his parents
his ethic
were like kind of. They were competent, and they gave him push.
His morals, too.
They gave him push.
Competent, give him push. That's it. Yeah, that's so typical of, like, it's just, I think for a little bit, that's the thing about English people. Like, they don't really let you in like the American celebrity does. They keep everybody at a very safe distance, which is more power to them, you know?
You think that's a cultural difference?
I'm not sure. Okay.
You think that you're saying culturally there's a
more
different closed, more
standard
standoffish?
Of privacy. Of course there is, yeah. There's a different standard of privacy across the Atlantic Ocean for sure.
Okay. I don't know, do we have anything else more to say about his early life, or is that pretty much it? I did go watch, I know this was later in his life. At some point, I think it was in his 40s, he got very interested in saving the orangutans and took a trip to go visit some orangutans out in the wild, and it very much touched him. And he went back later after he was diagnosed with the Alzheimer's, or it's a form of Alzheimer's, a rare form. And I watched that video, the later one, of him going back and the physical difficulties he had traveling to go out there. And you could tell he's just a very thoughtful, caring person with a genuine love of life. I mean, he said when he found out that he got his... Okay, so he had some books published, and when his agent or publisher, whoever, called him and said, guess what, we got you a 6-book deal, that's when he knew he could quit his job and write full-time. And he said, I think he went out and sat in the garden. He said it was like a Disney movie. It's like almost like he could see birds just flying around. He was like, oh my God, he's so happy. And I saw a later interview, he said he never expected to make any money doing this. He did this out of love. And then he never expected to make a lot of money. He's like, I never expected to make $1 million. And I never expected to make $multi-million. So, I mean, I think that was just part of his personality and who he was in the books. It's in the books. So, I mean, I think that's enough about Pratchett, unless you guys got anything else to add.
Well, I just think Pratchett's one of the few authors that we're going to read or discuss who is a truly unique individual and is an extraordinary human being. I mean, a lot of these people are good writers. Some aren't that good, but like I just think that he has this gift. He has that X factor that's worth talking about, like a Stephen King, a Mark Twain, where just the prolific and, like you said, his nature is just very interesting. Not all writers can even aspire to be what Pratchett is. That's why, yeah, just innate, indefinable quality about him.
Well, do you want to define that quality?
Well, he's dead, so what's the point? No, I mean, I would describe it as like a Steve Jobs type thing, as like that person that comes along and who can captivate people, who can inspire people, who's a step above. He's not like every other author out there. I mean, the body of work that he has, the amount of time and energy that would go into this is beyond the measure of an ordinary person. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's also very British.
It's very British. So
very British.
the book that what we're covering is The Color of Magic, which was not his first book that he wrote, as we said, but it's the first book in Discworld, and I think it's the first book that he wrote of Discworld. So, Wilk, you were just going to give us a quick synopsis of this book, and then we can kind of get into the discussion of it.
The book is kind of a journey. It features a wizard that is described as kind of a buffoon.
What's the name of the wizard?
Rincewind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got that right? Wow.
Yep.
Hey, score one for me. Yeah, mark that at home, guys. I've named the character correctly. So, Rincewind is basically fleeing a city that's on fire with two chains, two flower, not two chains.
One for two.
Basically, they go on this. I would say it's like an Odyssey type thing, but it's a disc, and they go to the edge of the world, so they don't go in a full circle. Really, they can't. But they're basically they're pawns or game pieces in an elaborate game of the gods. And to me, it's almost a showcase of his talent and skill of making a world. And again, full disclosure, I read on Wikipedia, there's about 8 references in this book to other fantasy series that I have never read that went way over my head. And, you know, I was born in the late 70s, and a lot of these fantasy series were popular in the 60s and 70s. I don't even know what they are. But and the references I didn't even get. I liked the book on one level, but I felt like I missed out on other levels because I'm just not familiar with that body of work that he was referencing. He's a fantasy enthusiast.
Well, So you know.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Summary. I kind of got off track. Go on. Yes.
Yeah. So the story is about this wizard who has problems because he can't cast spells because he's got an issue because there's a powerful spell stuck in his head, and he's sort of become the companion / guide of this guy named Two Flowers who's a tourist, and they kind of just go into all these misadventures. So one of the things you mentioned is there's these references. And there's references to other kind of works of fantasy. Like one of the references is there's like literally gods. You get viewpoints, you get point of views of these gods in the books, and they're literally playing a game with the humans, and they're rolling dice, and that's almost like a reference to Dungeons and Dragons. And there's references like that throughout the book, but I would say
Clash of the Titans.
Sure, and I would
the Odyssey, the Iliad.
Yeah.
Any Greek poem. Yeah.
And I would say that these references though are it speaks to the true genius of Terry Pratchett in that you don't get caught up in any of that stuff. If you don't, you could just gloss right over any of these references, and it's not like you're missing out on the story. But if you have the backstory to some of these references, like there's a character named Hrun who is, you know, a harks back to Conan the Barbarian, that classic character, then you have more of an appreciation for it. But you don't need it to enjoy the story, and I think it just it flows very well. I mean, Rick, did you feel like lost at all in that kind of sense?
No, not at all. I mean, I was in tune with sort of like his style and how it changed when he was describing the scene with the gods and how he made them so extremely authoritative. And he's got such a knack just to give his characters gravity in a split second. Like in, 3 sentences, you'll know like exactly what this guy, exactly what makes this guy tick, it's just, he's got such an uncanny ability. And, He's great with strong characters, but he's also great with weak characters. It's awesome.
Yeah. The story is actually broken down into 4 parts. It's almost like 4 long short stories, 4 novellas. And I think we talked about this with Going Postal. Pratchett doesn't typically write in chapters. Did any of you, Wilk, did you feel like the story was disjointed at all because of that? Or did you feel,
I feel the story was disjointed without it. I mean, maybe disjointed's the wrong word. I felt like the plot wasn't imperative during this book. It was just, I read it, I liked the words, I liked the phrasing, I laughed, but at no point was I on the edge of my seat about a plot point or a tight turn in the story. It was just kind of an enjoyable tale but it can be told around a campfire, I guess, for lack. I mean, it's very dry, very witty, but ultimately, yeah, I don't know. I feel like a kid watching a movie with a lot of references to adults. Yeah,
it almost felt like a tall tale, like a folk tale, like a Paul Bunyan kind of story, like that kind of a feel.
Yeah, like a campfire feel, a British campfire. I mean, I keep saying it's very British, and I mean that love. I like the British folks. It was definitely, I mean, it has its own style and feel to it. It's only the second Pratchett book I've read, very similar to the other book that I've read by him, and I enjoyed it, but yeah.
I felt like the characters were almost falling in and out of trouble. Like there was just kind of this momentum, and they were kind of just like tripping along the whole time. And I guess that goes to what you were saying, Wilk, where they get into trouble, but you don't totally feel tense all the time. Like the story just kind of keeps moving, and they sort of just kind of like I said, fall in and out of trouble. I mean, is that kind of what you were trying to say there?
That's why I said it was kind of like the Odyssey, which is kind of the same sort of thing. You read the Odyssey, and you're enjoying the lyrical prose and the way that it's written. You're not really concerned about the characters living or dying. That's kind of how I felt here.
So did you feel that Rincewind and Two Flower, the two protagonists, did they have agency? Did they make decisions that moved the plot along, or were they kind of just going along for the ride? You know. All right, well, let's go to you, Rick. How did you feel about that? You haven't talked in a while. Did you feel that those characters were making decisions and taking agency in the world that they were part of?
Yeah, I guess there was a little bit of, there's a balance, obviously, between free will and fate, and they were up in the clouds. The gods were fighting, and one of the gods' names was Fate, and I think free will gave Rincewind and Two Flower the facilities to move on and get forward, and all of those things are a matter of luck and chance, and Rincewind and Two Flower made it all happen, dude. Fate threw some obstacles at them, and I forget the other. It was a goddess. I think they just called her the goddess.
They called her the lady because I think she was supposed to be Lady Luck.
Lady Luck. Okay, well, yeah, that makes sense.
They never said Lady Luck, but they said Lady L.
Yeah,
I think you couldn't.
I love that, you got these parallel universes working together, and there was a third universe in the book. Rincewind found himself in a plane in 1983 or whatever, and it was kind of amazing how we went into another dimension and through like a black hole in the universe, and he wound up in a different time in a different place.
So did you feel like he was making decisions that affected his course, or do you think he was just kind of like a victim of the gods and whatever happened?
Well, yeah, ultimately, yes, they were victims of the gods, sure.
So you didn't feel like they were making a lot of decisions that actually...
No, yeah, they were just, like Wilk said, along for the ride, or, kind of taking it as it comes.
I know some people have said, and we're not super read in Discworld, but we read a later book and then we read this one, that the earlier books are more joke-driven, and as Pratchett went along, humor was still part of it, but it was more well woven in the story. Did any of you guys feel that way? Wilk, did you feel that the story was kind of just driving to get to the next joke?
Yeah, more so. Going postal, the other book I read, I liked better, to be honest. I mean, I liked it better because
it's a much later book.
It's a much later book, but I felt there was a sort of a sense of urgency and a plot where the main character was looking at making this work or dying, and that's a very dark. I like dark humor underlying, but again, I like the character too. I thought it was more character driven. With that main character whose name I can't remember. But this was very good. This, again...
Most fun this week.
Yeah, both books were throwbacks to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, to me. And this one, which Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy also was very joke-driven. And, I mean, there was a story here. I just didn't really... I didn't care. I mean, it was like watching a Monty Python movie or a book, in my opinion. And again, I like Monty Python. I'm just saying it seemed more of a comedy than a well-crafted, plot-driven tale.
Yeah, you could describe this book.
Is that sacrilegious? I'm not trying to insult the author. I love the author, but
not at all.
I wasn't like on the edge of my seat.
Rick, what did you want to say, Rick?
But Will made the positive point that it was just very enjoyable to read. You get right through it, even though it's sort of broken up into all of these different sort of vignettes. I would call them, kind of the same style as our previous author in our previous podcast. But this author was more. He took negative things and he made them funny and positive and just sort of like a mockery, and it was more satire, and that was great. Our last book didn't really achieve all those positive things.
The way this was kind of cut up into 4 different parts, it almost reminded me of how Stephen King's first book, Carrie was not like just a straight novel. Like these newspaper things were thrown in, and it was like more different elements. And that was the first novel. I don't know. Something made me kind of compare those. But one of the other things I wanted to talk about was Two Flower. Is kind of like this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed kind of character who's seeing the world in rosy colors. And then you got Rincewind, who's a complete cynic and just seems all the horrible things that are going to go wrong. And even though those characters are kind of more at the extremes, I felt like they balance each other out really great. And of course, they add to the humor. It's a great dynamic for the humor, and I love their relationship that they have. I don't know if you guys felt that was a strong way about the characters as well.
Rincewind was extremely polite. And so was Two Flower. There was a mutually beneficial relationship. Two Flower had the enchanted pearwood, treasure chest following them around, and there was.
Well, let's get into that. Explain that thing.
Well, Rincewind and Two Flower have all these adventures, mostly because of the amount of treasure and finances that Two Flower is dragging along with them in this treasure chest, and the treasure chest has,
which they call the luggage. It's luggage. He's a tourist, and he has luggage, but it's in the form of a magical chest.
Yeah, and it's kind of like a dog, and, it's more like a very protective dog, and it'll go to the ends of the earth to follow its master around. Kind of like how the golems were and going postal, But
yeah.
This one, this one was full of gold, so, and it was Two Flower's gold, and he didn't know how to spend his money in Moorpork, and he was getting into trouble because everyone noticed that this guy's just full of gold, and he is totally clueless. He's a tourist, and he was just sort of like he was like the biggest joke of the book. The book, you could argue,
let's be clear. Two Flower is an insurance salesman.
The idiocy of tourism,
Who's touring. He's an insurance salesman who's like taking a tour through a fantasy world.
Right.
It's absurd.
And he gets into Moorpork, and he insures the tavern that he's at with the owner. And the owner, there's a tavern brawl, and the owner finds a way to burn his tavern down, and that's pretty much what created the fire in Moorpork that led to them evacuating.
The luggage was probably one of my most favorite elements of this book, and it does follow them around like a dog, and it does more than just have gold. It's got a personality. It gets them out of jams. It can fight people, and it's just fun. It's a fun element.
Yeah, and that's not something I'm used to. Like, obviously in classical fantasy, you have enchanted things like, swords and, Lord of the Rings, they're magical. Rings are magical. Terry Pratchett, he sort of makes a cartoon out of these things, and they're a lot more sort of like just ridiculous. The other enchanted item in this book was a sword, I think, and it was named, I forget his name.
Oh, yeah.
But the sword had like 2 rubies for eyes, and it just kept on like encouraging.
And it talked.
Yeah, it talked, and it talked to the owner, and it kept on just getting the owner to do crazy, stupid things with itself. So it was just always looking for trouble.
And it was annoying. It was like annoying.
It was annoying.
It was like annoying
too.
Right.
It's actually a lot more hilarious than I make it sound, but yeah.
Well, it's like every time they stop, the sword's trying to tell them stories about itself, and it's trying to do things, and like Harung the Barbarian's like kind of like telling the sword to shut up. Mm-hmm. He's trying to do something. I mean, that goes to Pratchett's worlds. I think when we read Going Postal, I noticed it's like there's just characters everywhere. There's all these monsters and things that come alive, and it's just you're really immersed in a world with a minimum of words. Like he's just kind of a master craftsman with the words and pictures. I don't know.
There's a lot more straight up magic though in this one compared to classic fantasy that I'm used to. I mean, the magic is just in your face, and they actually go into the sort of like this zone where the magic levels are higher, and you can pretty much materialize whatever you imagine in this place. And the object of choice is a dragon, and I thought one of the most hilarious scenes was when Rincewind had he had possession of this crazy sword that was talking to him and getting him into these battles. He was fighting upside down against one of the dragon lords, and they were both fighting upside down, and they had hooks on their boots, and they were like stepping on these rings that were lining the ceiling, and it's just like this ridiculous image in my head, and it's just something that the movie totally screwed up. But I don't know how they were going to be able to do something like that anyway, but at least they tried.
Wilk, did you have a favorite scene in the book or something that stuck out to you that was more memorable?
The upside down sword fight was kind of funny.
You felt the same, okay. You also enjoyed that scene. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if we have anywhere else. Do you guys have anything else to add about the book, or I think that could wrap it up with the book. I think we all enjoyed it.
Oh yeah,
it's very British.
Okay. All right, well then, moving right along, we'll get into the film, and that was directed by Vadim Jean, and I'll just note that Vadim Jean also directed Hogfather, which was the first full BBC version book that they made in Discworld, which was released previous to the Color of Magic, even though the Color of Magic is the first book. And then he also directed this one, Color of Magic, and he was executive producer on Going Postal. I noticed that tonight. I didn't know that before. He didn't direct it, but I guess he executive produced it. So he had his hand in all of these BBC adaptions. But, Wilk, I'll let you kind of take it from there. And do you have anything to let us know about this director?
I think he's very cerebral. Cerebral? Am I saying that right? Yeah, he's very intellectual. He's a very thoughtful person. He's got a technical proficiency with filmmaking, as opposed to a Stanley Kubrick artistic sense. And he's making some compelling movies right now about the banking system in Britain. And he had one foray into American film, which was Jimmy Glick with Martin Short.
Yeah.
That was the big one. That's what I was trying to think of the other day. Again, I'm going to stand by technically proficient here. I mean, I think he's British. He probably loves Terry Pratchett. I know he likes Terry Pratchett quite a bit, and the movie that he made is a fairly faithful adaptation. I guess a combination of two of his books.
The first and second one. Yeah.
Right. So it kind of goes. When I watched it, I was kind of confused because I thought I had missed a variety of things. But I mean he's one to watch though, because unlike some of our other directors that I've looked at, I think he's got some interesting things on the horizon. He's working with Kelsey Grammer on a movie about the British banking system. He's made some documentaries and gotten some awards for those. But I wasn't particularly impressed with this movie just from the artistic sense. Again, it was like watching a play. And again, I think that's how the BBC is. It's very dialogue.
That's how you felt last time. I think that's how you felt last time with Going Postal.
Take it as a just objective standpoint. I mean, I love a great movie that uses the cinematic techniques and skills that make you emote or feel. This movie didn't make me feel anything. I was just watching it. I didn't feel any emotion.
I guess you felt the same way about the book.
The book I laughed. Yeah, the book was. Yeah, I guess that's true. You're right. I wasn't emotionally tied to the book, and that's okay. It was enjoyable, but it was like it was a sitcom. It was an enjoyable, high quality sitcom for me. But yeah.
All right. Any more about the director?
I think I've said all I got to say about the director at this point. So.
Okay. Well, then we can go into the movie and just compare the differences. And of course, the main difference is probably that the movie is based on two books, because The Color of Magic kind of ends on a cliffhanger, literally. You don't know what happens to Two Flower and the luggage, and Rinse when you kind of leave hanging there. And I guess, the next book gets right into that, and they chose to make this movie be part of that, cover both books. And it's a two-part, miniseries, whatever. It's was it 3 hours long or something? 2 hour and a half?
I only saw the first one. Did you see the second one, Brian?
Yeah.
You did? Did I just ruin your thing, or what? I don't understand.
You were supposed to watch both parts.
No, I didn't.
You're supposed to watch both parts. I watched both parts.
I also watched...
Good for you guys. I did not like the fucking movie. I didn't want to continue it.
All right. Well, let's get into the movie. Why don't you tell us what the differences are? Besides which I pointed out is that it covers two books.
The differences between the book and the movie by Rick Mell. Let's see. The movie sucked.
That's not a difference.
And the book was awesome.
That's not a difference.
No, let's see. The movie was...
Why did you... Ryan's getting flustered.
Really
Let me just jump in here.
it.
I'll be the peacemaker. Why did you not like the movie? Let's just start with there. Let's not. Yeah.
Well, no, wait. Let's just say what's the differences between. Let's just cover this real quickly. The movie is pretty faithful to the books, except one thing is in the book there's a barbarian named Hrun, and in the movie they use a barbarian named Cohn, who I think is in the second book and not in the first book.
And Lincoln has a secretary named Kennedy, and Kennedy had a secretary named Lincoln. Just blew my mind.
Yeah. They also did
and
in the
movie
book.
Didn't include the scene from 1983 in the airplane, which was one of the best scenes in the book.
Yeah, and then another thing that they in the movie they covered the Wormberg, which has the upside down fight scene with the dragons, but they don't get into this big fight in this temple. There's a couple of scenes and stuff that they leave out, and characters that they leave out.
The fight in the movie was just so completely brief. And the effects just were not there.
Well, I read that the actors felt nauseous when they were making that scene because they had to physically hang upside down.
Can you imagine that actor playing Rincewind upside down, actually, like with a sword, trying to do action shots?
Yeah, and I mean,
Oh my
they had
god!
it all. The woman actor pulled her stomach a bunch of times. They said,
My
and the actor who
God.
played Rincewind said he's like, yeah, I wouldn't rush to go do that again.
It wasn't even worth it. No, yeah, didn't play well.
Well, in
Don't you agree, Ryan?
in the movie, the sword ends up with Two Flower and not Rincewind. They changed that. There's a few other things, but it keeps to the soul of the book. But all right, Rick, you didn't enjoy the movie. Why didn't you enjoy it compared to the book?
It's hard for me to explain. It's pretty common with all the British movies. Time Bandits. That's a perfect example. That's supposed to be a British movie with action, right? And that movie is super boring. That's a British action movie.
I like it.
And when Britain does its best to do an action movie, you get Time Bandits.
Okay, oh come on.
So
you got
there you
a
go.
lot of great British action movies out there. There's it's beyond Time Bandits.
Well, probably more current ones, but I mean that movie was made back in what?
Long.
85, 86, I don't know.
I mean,
I remember liking
let's
it.
not forget all the Star Wars movies were filmed in Britain, in a British studio. I mean, like Britain, they made all the Bond movies, which really kind of defined action and sci-fi in American films. I mean, they've had a huge influence on it. They can make good movies. I'm just saying the BBC can't. BBC is just like TV. I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
That's
Right.
my take on
Public,
Doctor Who stuff.
I loved it. I mean, I really liked it.
Why
I
don't you marry it?
the last BBC adaptation, I think, a lot more than you guys. I mean, I just thought it's fun. I didn't feel like, even though it was television, maybe they didn't have the budget that movies did, I thought it was fun. They kept to the spirit of the book. I thought the actors all did a great job. I mean, you had really top-name actors. I mean, Sean Astin, he was great as Two Flower. I mean, he played that role perfectly. So did the guy who played Rincewind. They think they played those roles just great.
They had the names, and the names command respect. I get you, Ryan, but I mean the actual performance in this movie was not as good as you're making it seem.
I enjoyed
for what we do here, though, we've done. I mean, like, it's not a good film. It's not a true movie. It's a TV show. It's filmed like a TV show. It's got low production values. I mean, it's words.
I disagree. I completely disagree. I enjoyed the effects. I enjoyed the production. I mean, I didn't feel like when I'm watching that, I'm not watching this saying, this is cheap. Like it doesn't hold up to movie standards. I'm just immersed in it.
That's
fine.
fine.
And even the effects and stuff.
No, I mean,
I don't know. I just really disagree with you guys on that.
It's cool because here's the thing. People love Doctor Who. People are way into it. I've been to a lot of conventions. I like Doctor Who. I just don't love it. I'm just saying I like cinema. I like things that are designed for a giant screen. I like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I like movies that use the ambience and the light, and they take time. They know they have 2 hours to tell a story. There's a certain sense of urgency as opposed to a 4-hour movie with commercial breaks in it. It just changes the way I watch it. And that what you're saying is perfectly
Well, you
valid.
say there's commercial breaks, and I guess because you're saying, but the story almost has commercial breaks. The way it's broken up into different parts.
What do you guys think about the art in this movie? Do you think it's worthy at all?
No,
I loved it.
Like the art, just like the sets and the styles of acting.
Yes, I totally think David Jason, the guy who played Rincewind, he wanted that role for 15 years. He was broadcasting to people that he wanted to play that role. I think he played it perfectly. He played Rincewind perfectly.
Yeah.
And Sean Astin, he is a great second banana, which, I mean, he's not really just a second banana in this. He's like one of the main characters. But,
he plays second banana. That's his thing. He plays number two. That's.
But he does it brilliantly. And Tim Curry as the bad guy, the bad wizard, Trimon, he really got that part down.
It's a great TV show.
Look, I didn't enjoy seeing Two Flower being portrayed as the second banana. He was the center of the entire book. He made the book go. And then he had like the energy, that sort of supported all of that.
Sean Astin had that. He had
was
that
like
sense of
infinitely positive,
But Sean Astin, I think
he did portray that, but that's what he does.
That's what my point is. I
mean,
think he was great casting for it.
Just to be clear, I didn't dislike the movie. I just didn't consider it a movie. I'd rather see this put into a big screen to be seen in a theater with popcorn. You pay $10 for it. There's a certain sense of urgency when it's being put in a movie theater as opposed to a TV screen. And
I guess to me now with
the aesthetics.
Netflix and with binge watching, to me it's like if I go see a movie at the theater or I go sit at my house, it's like what's the difference? I want good content, and I think I had it with this. And to me, like it's like
it's good.
it's all the same.
Would you pay $10?
It's good content. I'm just saying, I like movies that are designed for cinema better than movies that are designed for binge watching.
So did you feel that way about True Detective?
Yeah, absolutely.
What I mean, you felt how you didn't like that the fact it wasn't like a movie?
Yeah,
or it was
it was a great TV series. It was a great 8-hour story.
Oh, okay.
But
really,
you can't really digest. I don't have 8 hours to watch something. There's something to be said. It's hard to make a great movie because you have, let's say, 2 to 3 hours to tell a story, to make somebody feel something, and then you're done.
But is that relevant nowadays when you can just binge watch things?
I love
time?
binge watching. I love watching serials. I watch Netflix. I'm just saying I like a good movie too. I'm just saying for the purpose of this podcast, True Detective was never supposed to be anything but a TV series. And I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing this as a movie. I think it'd be a little bit better. That's all. You can make anything TV series versus movie. I don't know. It's
I see your point.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
I noticed Pratchett made a cameo in this one again. I don't know. I mean, what else do you guys have to say about this? Is that pretty much it?
I don't know. You have kind of like a finality about that question. And there's still like 10 minutes left here, so what do you think?
We don't have to just like drag it on for no reason. I'm just saying, like, I
think there's more to be said.
About the film. Okay,
I just can't think of anything right now. Yeah, Terry Pratchett was one of the astronomers, and it's funny that those are another set of characters, or another sort of sect within Discworld, or the astronomers, the people who are interested in like what it's all about, and and they actually have no idea, with the perception of the entire universe. It's just their little sort of nook in it, and it's all useless.
That's
anyway.
what I think this film did a good job, which is I think maybe the other ones did too. Is that Pratchett has a lot of asides in his writing, where he does world building. Like he's got this a whole side about. There's this, what do you call it? Like a pod that they create to go off into space and view the giant turtle. And Pratchett digresses and tells you about the builder of this. And it gives you a little backstory about this guy. He's this brilliant builder, and he makes these amazing things for these like leaders of these countries. And then once he builds them these beautiful, amazing things, they like blind him so he can't do anything else. But then he's so talented he overcomes his blindness and makes something else. And then so someone hacks off his hand.
Right.
And then he makes this new thing. And then he gets killed. And so Pratchett goes into all these little asides. And I think the film does do that. They go into a little bit of these asides and gives you that Pratchett flavor.
Yeah, it does.
And so you didn't lose that. And that was one of the things I think Vadim Jean was concerned about, is that they didn't cut all that out, because that's Pratchett. That's his style. So that's another plus to this film, I felt.
Yeah. It was actually safe for the movie to go off on those tangents, so they were compelled to do so. I thought. I mean, I thought they just said we're going to have to make this movie. They were not. They were inspired by Terry's story, obviously, but I think Terry's story didn't translate well to the movie. The movie just seemed more serious. The book was more funny. The book seemed a lot more real than the movie, obviously. To me, and it was just more. I don't know. There was a lot more. Wilkes talks about sense of urgency. There was much more of that in the book than in the movie. The actors are too British for me. They're too
Sean
like.
Astin's not British.
They're not passionate enough for me. Sean Astin is American, and he was the only passionate guy in the movie, right? So, and that's kind of like what it was about. The tourist who is not like the others and has money to spend. So it's hilarious.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap things up there. So, Rick, I'll go to you. Final thoughts on the book and movie. Final comments.
I already kind of made them, but I don't know. Well,
your final thoughts and your star rating. Give me your final thoughts and your star rating. How do you rate the book?
Yeah.
Book and movie.
Well, the book was excellent, and I'm going to give it 4 stars, and I got to give it 4 because it's not as good as Going Postal. Going Postal is more of a professional work. This is definitely like a survey course on Terry Pratchett, and he gives you the survey right in the beginning, which is cool. The movie, I'm going to give 3 stars. It's just, like I've said before, it's just kind of, it's nice if you're a fan. It's nice if you enjoy the book.
Okay.
But it's not like entertaining. It wasn't entertaining to me, so it's 3 stars.
All right, Wilk. Stars?
I'm going to surprise you all here, because I think if I had read this book first, I would have given it 5 stars. And if I read Going Postal second, I would have given it 4 stars. So I'm going to give it 4.5 stars. It's my second Terry Pratchett book. I'm not sure if I'll read a third because they were so similar, but they were both very good. So I'd give it 4.5 stars, and the movie I'd give 3.5 stars because it's good. It's just,
It's TV good.
it's TV good. It's British good. It's Doctor Who good.
Okay. I will say I give the book 4 stars. Loved it. I think I did like Going Postal better, and I'll give them the film BBC adaptation 4 stars as well. Enjoyed both of them. So
I got plugs, dude. I got plugs.
you got plugs?
Yeah.
You're supposed to tell me that beforehand.
Well, you usually ask at the end of the show if you want to plug anything. So
Well, I said okay. So your plugs, I'll have to edit it back in.
it's okay. We'll segue here. We're on Instagram now. No_deodorant on Instagram, and as always, you can look at me at
The unofficial Instagram page.
unofficial, not at all official, but it's really the only Instagram page we have.
Run by Will.
And then drycracker.com is going to be posting 2 things a month. And we're working hard to get Steve Albini on the show. I am reaching out to him. If you know him, if you know Steve Albini, it'd be really cool if you could call him.
The famous record producer.
Yeah. And then here's a plug that I just want to say. I watched probably the best science fiction movie I've seen in 10 years on Friday with my lovely wife, called Ex Machina. And
Oh yeah, I saw that in the theater.
saw that in the theater?
It was really good.
Yeah, that's what I mean by a good film, because man, that made me feel something. And I'm still thinking about it. I'm still talking about it, and I would love. It's totally worth checking out. The director of the movie is actually an author. He wrote 3 novels, one being The Beach, and he wrote 28 Days Later and Sunshine, 2 of my favorite movies. And it's just a great movie. So please check it out. It's totally worth watching. It's a good experience.
It is a good movie.
I wish I was
great
stoned when I watched it. So
Okay, so
No.
then saying that, I will invite everyone to watch us or listen to us. Probably listen to us next month when we cover The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories, which is a collection of short stories by the author H.P. Lovecraft, one of the original horror writers. And we're going to cover 4 films, apparently. We're going to cover Reanimator. It was directed by Stuart Gordon and starred Jeffrey Combs. And then Bride of Reanimator, which was directed by Brian Usna and starred Jeffrey Combs.
I'm not looking
This
forward to
And
that.
Cthulhu, directed by Daniel Gildark, and starred Tori Spelling
no.
of 90210.
good God.
And
My favorite
and we're
actress.
going to cover the last film, Dagon, directed by Stuart Gordon and starring Ezra Godden.
Or how about we just watch Sharknado?
Tori Spelling is the queen of Hollywood.
At that, I will invite everyone to follow us on Twitter, or you can follow Wilk on Periscope,
Don't forget.
and to like our Facebook page, to visit our website, www.nodeodorant.com. Please go into iTunes and write a review for the show. You could probably be the first person that doesn't actually know us that writes a review on iTunes, if you write one now.
Yeah.
And, subscribe to our podcast. We're also on YouTube. So with that, I'll bid everyone to say good night, everyone. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, or to read our show notes and find us on social media, visit nodeodorant.com. For more information on Ryan Sean O'Reilly and his various works of fiction, visit ryanseanoreilly.com. For more information on David Wilkinson, visit drycracker.com. For more information on Richard Mell, check out his profile at goodreads.com. The theme music for this podcast was written by John Doyle from the band I Decline. You can visit him at i-decline.com. Voiceover for this podcast was provided by me, Margaret O'Reilly. Well, that concludes our episode. We hope you've learned a lot. Again, thanks for listening to our show. And always, always remember, there is no deodorant in outer space.
Let's, Wilk, you got anything else to add, or let's wrap it up?
I'd like to believe that we live in a world where there'd be a fad where kids in high school dress up like genies, and everyone has like the genie look. You think, remember the 2000s? We'd all dress as genies. But that's never gonna happen.
I dressed in like jeans. Genies. What is it? What is a genie? Like a capri jean?
No, like Aladdin, like the genie in Aladdin. Like I think it'd be fun to dress like him.
Oh,
walk around with
So
a lamp.
you don't have any more points about what we're discussing.
Yes.
No, I just think it'd be kind of cool if we lived in a world where there was a genie look, and I'd be all about that.